Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show with Aditya, India's number one podcast, with India's number one host, Aditya, in association with Dusra.net, the number one website in sports, education, and entertainment. This is episode 28. It's the 1st of February 2019. Let's talk about India's performance in the fourth ODI against New Zealand. Should we call that complacency? Should we say that they lost momentum? And does it mean that the absence of Dhoni and Kohli makes this team weak? Well, these are certainly the rumors flying around when it comes to India's performance when they were bowled out for 92 yesterday, but I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree with those who are floating around these theories. No, the performance was not complacent. Yes, they lost the match, but in the hindsight, they had already won the series. So a couple of performances where they do not live up to the expectations or do not go 4-0 up is not much of a burden. These things can happen. We lost wickets at regular intervals. Our number 4, 5, 6, 7 were a little scratchy and they were in a hurry. Rohit and Dhawan didn't get India off to that start which one expects. Therefore, the first ODI against Australia when India were 4 for 3 and then they lost only by 34 runs. A match one expected India could have lost by 200 runs. They could have been bowled for 90 in that match, but no, Dhoni prevented that from happening. But Dhoni was not present here. There is no point going into the past. One thinks that Karthik is a good player and the media thought that Dhoni should go. Well, Dhoni wasn't playing, so let's suppose that he was not there and then we collapsed. Should we have done better? Yes, we should have done better. We should have been smarter, but fine. One performance where we get out for 90 and the team doesn't live up to the expectations. That's what the sport is all about. Rafael Nadal lost to Djokovic. Who knew he would lose? One thought that Nadal would overpower Djokovic, but the opposite happened. Nobody expected Djokovic to win, but Nadal won. And then you weren't expecting New Zealand to just be lying around and say, okay, we lost the series 3-0, so let's make it 4-0. Well, Trent Bolt had other ideas. India had won the series. Dhoni was still under a bit of injury cloud. One doesn't know what happened. Or they thought that let's continue with giving Karthik another chance. So they continued with that combination. Shubman Gill came into the team. It was a brilliant decision. If they wanted to drop someone, it should have been Shikhar Dhawan. It seems as if the women's team has taken the clue from the men's team. And the situation is reversed here as well. The likes of Smriti Mandhana and Jemimah Rodriguez couldn't get going today. And India were bowled out of 150. Slightly better than the men's performance of 90 odd. Now the women's team is going to win the series 2-1. And the men's team most likely will win the series 4-1. The Australia-Sri Lanka match. Australia certainly seemed to have brushed off the ghost of the India-Australia series and now they are taking advantage of Sri Lanka to take the series to 0. Now let's look at this performance. 30 for 3 and now they are 324 for 3 with Joe Burns and Travis Head at 147 and 151 respectively. Travis Head, who was labelled as a one-day player, has now evolved into a valuable test batsman. This match is now akin to that famous Kolkata test between India and Australia when Dravid and Lakshman had that partnership of 376. It seems this partnership of 300 is certainly going to revive Australian cricket and that middle order now looks more secure. Is the Sri Lankan bowling weak? No. They have a world-class attack. Let's just say that the wicket to bat on is good. They are going at over 4 runs per over and most likely they will end up between 420 and 430. And if this partnership continues, it will go into the record books. And it has been a stupendous performance. Joe Burns, who is now certainly burning the town, seems to have put rest to the opening slot. Well, he could have been brought back in the India series, but that's in the past. And along with Travis Head, have secured their slots for the Ashes series. Even if Warner and Smith return, I would put Head and Burns in their respective slots. There is an article in the newspaper that Dravid proposes a plan to facilitate alternate careers for young cricketers. While this is a very noble idea, why are we limiting it to only cricketers? Why not taking it across to all sports? Knowing that cricketers often are paid more than other sports. Persons from other sports who struggle after they retire, they're not able to make a living. Therefore, this idea should be taken up by the sports authority and various sporting organizations, and everyone should sit together that what are the viable opportunities for sports person post retirement. One of them is obviously commentary, but not everyone will want to go into commentary. Well, people like Gambhir and Robin Uthappa were certainly lucky to get a commentary slot during the one day and T20 series, though they were not impressive, but they certainly were lucky to even be there for those 6 matches. But not everyone wants to go for commentary. There has to be an alternate option. The idea is that they can become sports psychologists, they can be trained for being coaches. There is an option to become an umpire, match referee if they want to keep up with the sport. If they want to go away from the sport, they can certainly, just as they do in the army, they can go for various disciplines like MBA or any other discipline which they can do with correspondence and can have an alternative career. Is the internet as addictive as drugs like opiates, marijuana, heroin? That's a subjective point. Well, are we addicted? Yes, addiction is subjective. One person addiction is other person's passion. It is a catch-22 situation. On one hand, we want everyone to go paperless to save the environment and so that trees are not cut. On the other hand, we don't want people to be stuck on the computer for too long. So it is about striking the right balance. Yes, use internet, but internet can not only be used for entertainment but also for education, and then education can also come from books. So if we don't want teenagers to use too much of internet or video games, then we should encourage them to read books, go out, meet people. But in this environment, we do not trust our children to go out alone because parents fear that children might get hurt if they go outside. So it is about striking the right balance, and video games are not at all addictive and bad for health. They have some learning elements. It's up to us if we spend video games on 20 minutes or 20 hours. It's our own maturity which will allow us. One has been playing video games from time immemorial, be it the 70s, 80s, 90s, or in the last 10 years. Video games have always been in vogue. It is just now that we feel a sudden concern that people are spending too much time on this. Well, there could be a lot of other reasons. It is not at all surprising that de-addiction centers for internet and video games would come up, just like we've had one for alcohol and drugs and some for overeating. It's all about maturity, and we need to think for ourselves that how much of this should we do. Thank you for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for another dynamic episode.